Welcome back to First Take. NFC East rivals, the Eagles and the Giants, will meet for the second time this season on Sunday as Philly looks to avenge a 34-17 loss back in New York in Week 6. This past Sunday, A.J. Brown had his biggest game of the season for the Eagles, finishing with 121 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over the Vikings. But that didn't stop Brown from making yet another cryptic social media post on Tuesday as he shared a photo of himself with the caption, "Using me, but not using me." I said yesterday that I thought A.J. was sending a message that the Eagles' offense should be steered by the passing game and not the struggling running game. Do you think the Eagles' offense should be more pass or run-oriented, RC?
Well, I think the Eagles are in one of those unique positions, or should be in a unique position, where they can do what the day calls for. And that was exactly who this team had become, especially when you think about the Super Bowl, where Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City Chiefs focused on Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts and those wide receivers were able to beat them. They aren't that team right now. And so for me, this team has to be a team who will consistently call the run, but who is led by their pass game. And Mina has pointed this out. Dan has pointed this out. Kevin Patullo walked into that stadium on Sunday with a different mindset. He was going to put Jalen Hurts under center. He was going to put Saquon Barkley in the queue. And they started that game with 3 or 4 consecutive runs, and then they hit the huge play on 4th and 4 with the patience of Jalen Hurts and obviously continual play by A.J. Brown. I think that this team is a team that can beat you with the pass, but if Saquon Barkley doesn't get going, if this isn't a team that can run the football with needed, it won't reach the heights that we thought they had the potential of doing at the beginning of the season.
Mina?
They obviously need to run the football better than they have, but they also need to lean into their strengths, which is the passing game.
That's what
the
I'm
two
saying.
wide receivers that Jalen Hurts is throwing to. One thing that struck me about this past week, Dan and I were so excited to see them go under center and use play action to hit a couple shot plays. You don't have to run the ball well for defenses to have to respect it in those scenarios. That is what's been missing, by the way, that they've been selling that run and then passing over the top. The run game, to me, it's a little bit tricky because some of it has to do with the offensive line. They're just not as dominant as they were. But I guarantee you, every defense, when they play the Eagles, the first thing they think about, how do we stop A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
Yeah.
That's where you start as a team. You lean into your strengths. Their identity has shifted this year, and I think they'd be smart to embrace that rather than just stubbornly running when they're not good at it.
Dan?
Yeah, I think just in relation to AJ, I would disagree that he's trying to send a message of, I want the ball thrown to me more. I think the more that time has gone on by the day, I think that there's a reality there AJ Brown prefers to be traded. That's the feeling that I'm.
Okay, stop right there. Why do you believe he prefers to be traded? That's a very powerful statement. Why would a Super Bowl champion on a Super Bowl championship squad still prefer to be traded?
Because there's just been this consistent disconnect. There's been a consistent something is up there, whether it's the lack of production, them not throwing the ball enough, but then they go on the road. He has 4 for $120 something and 2. He has the game sealer. It's beautiful, the connection, and he still tweeted out. And so I'm not trying to read too much into it. This is a Super Bowl contending team, but for that to continuously happen, I do think that there's parts of A.J. Brown that would prefer to be traded and maybe traded to a place that is a little bit more pass-centric.
But isn't RC that essentially an indictment? I don't know a champion on a championship squad with that happens to be a wide receiver with a quarterback he believes in that wants to be traded. Why would A.J. Brown want to be traded, assuming Dan is correct? That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think the first thing, it's difficult for me to say that's what A.J. Brown wants. And I think I respect him enough to not do that in this case. But he also has to understand the consequences of his actions. When you tweet out, using me but not using me, you've read books on the sideline, you've said certain things you've said in post-game interviews, then obviously people are going to try to connect the tea leaves and draw their own conclusions. It can honestly be that, okay, finally in this game, they used me, right? They utilized me from my position, but I won't allow them to use me as some sort of pawn for anything. You don't know what A.J. Brown means, but the issue for me is if he was happy, if this was where A.J. Brown did want to be, he would be working in cohesion with the coaches, with the quarterback, with everyone on making sure whatever message was sent outside of this locker room was a message they all believed in, was a message they all could get behind, was a message that wouldn't cause any further division in the locker room. So whether he wants to be traded or not, this continual behavior is not positive for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not conducive for the Philadelphia Eagles finding ways to win. And coming off of a great team win in which the passing game was good, this tweet is extremely peculiar, and it leads to conversations like this.
I'm just so sick of trying to parse a grown man's social media posts that are cryptic. It's so junior high. Like, it reminds me of in junior high when people would leave away
Let me
messages.
ask you this. Is it junior high and a part of us or him?
Him, I think. I mean, it's a good question because you know who's in the same position of looking at this? The Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff and organization. We're not the only ones looking at these posts and wondering, what does he want? How do you make him happy? Should he be traded? Does he want out? They have to deal with the ramifications of it too. And look, if he wants to be traded, that's on him. If he prioritizes individual production, if that's something he aspires for in his career, if he thinks I could put up Hall of Fame numbers if I was in a more pass-heavy offense, I already have a Super Bowl ring, more power to him. But I will say this, guys, watching the tape from this last victory, Devontae Smith
He's awesome, but so is AJ.
I'm not saying he's better than him, and clearly they both benefit from each other. I guess that's part of my point, too. They're both getting one-on-ones because of the existence of each other.
Yeah.
I actually think because of all of the attention on A.J. Brown, because of the drama, because of this, Devontae is kind of being overlooked as a top 10 receiver in the NFL. I truly believe he's capable of that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, in Philadelphia's best interest as far as play on the field if this was something that was on A.J. Brown's mind, a desire to be elsewhere. I don't think it's in the best case of their best interest to go and do that because they're not running the ball. Like when RC said before, like they're in the situation where they can kind of do whatever they want. I felt that way last year. I don't know if that's the case this year. This is a team that right now.
But Dan, that's what I said though. But that was the point I made. I said they should be a team that could do what they want, but that is not the position that they're in right now.
Okay,
Gotcha.
yeah. And that's why, I don't think that if that was something that became a little bit more of a reality, it's good for them when it comes to the reality of trying to become that back-to-back Super Bowl champion. And so I don't know what it's going to take to kind of get the cryptic tweets away, but I do think they need to be more pass-centric.
We only got a minute left. Are you suggesting, when you talk about trading, you're not talking about anything like now. You're talking about, at the end of the season and all of that, right?
No.
You talking about now?
I mean, the trade window is in 12 days. There's going to be teams that are going to be very.
But I'm saying you would be an advocate of the Eagles changing up like that.
No, I do not think, as far as when it comes to the football field, that would make a ton of sense.
Right.
But I do believe
if he forces
that there are, I do believe that there are teams, and there's probably 3 or 4 that are going to be very interested in a wide receiver in the trade market at that high level that at least will entertain making the phone call because they see the tweets just like
RC, Mina, Dan, I got to tell you, my only thing is to be an all-world receiver, to be a champion. Listen, again, I don't want to put stuff in this. I don't want to say like I know it because I don't. But it's hard to imagine that this isn't an indictment, whether it's against your offensive coordinator or your head coach, in terms of how you feel as a receiver, to want to depart from a situation like that when you're winning.
Yeah, I understand.
That's hard to imagine.
I understand that, but I go back to, and it's not the same situation, but when Odell got traded to the Rams, and different team success, absolutely. But that was a receiver that was in that all-world class that kind of had the situation.
Yeah, but Odell didn't have quarterbacks throwing him the football. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
But this guy will.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is you already have Jalen Hurts. If you feel that positive about Jalen Hurts, it's hard for me to imagine that a receiver will want to leave.
This is very rare. Usually when these receivers run out, it's in situations like New York. To want to leave this situation, this team, this quarterback, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it might be nothing, but the tweets continue to show. And he had 4 for $120.
I got you. Got bills to pay. Got bills to pay. RC can appreciate that. He's all about the money. The Knicks got their first win of the season. But is this the year they go to the finals? I'll ask Monica McNutt next, right here on First Take.